Well, in Ukraine, there were reports today that a fifth Russian general has been killed in the fighting. Meanwhile, from Moscow, claims that its military had used hypersonic missiles for the first time in this conflict to destroy a weapons depot. Well, Ukraine's president has called for urgent peace talks as the suffering of his people continues. From Lviv, here's Geraint Vincent.
Mariupol is a city cut off from the world. People living there now spend most of their time sheltering underground. When they do emerge, it is onto streets that have been devastated by the Russian assault. The fight for the city has been fierce. And from the place which has become a symbol of Mariupol's plight, the theatre, which was being used as a shelter when it suffered a direct hit, a new satellite image of the ruin, it's thought hundreds of people could still be trapped under the rubble. Ukraine's president has been handing out medals to Special Forces soldiers. But in his last video message on social media, he addressed Moscow directly. It's time to meet, he said. It's time to talk. The Ukrainians' valiant defense of this country suffered another blow further along the coast in Mykolaiv. A rocket attack on a barracks left at least 50 of their soldiers dead. Ukraine's most vulnerable are of course not spared the suffering. Veronica is 6 years old. She contracted leukemia last year. Her mum Yana told me that they'd spent much of the last 3 weeks hiding in their basement before escaping to a hospital in Lviv. After the diagnosis, I thought it couldn't get any worse, she says. And then the war came. There's only so much treatment available here. So this morning, Veronica was among 42 young cancer patients who were moved on again.
They come from hospitals that were bombarded. They stayed in the shelter like for a couple of days. They didn't receive treatment. Some of them even like close to the death. So we try to stabilize them and we send them in ambulances and in the buses to the European clinics.
When lives are not being lost in Ukraine, they are being turned upside down. Families separated and devastated. This national trauma grows each day.
Let's go live to Lviv now. And Geraint, there's been another development in Russian military tactics in the past 24 hours.
Yeah, Russia says that it's deployed one of its new hypersonic missiles to destroy an arms depot here in western Ukraine. That is a missile which moves so fast that it's very difficult to defend against or even to detect. It is a reminder, if we needed one, that despite what's been a very poorly executed Russian invasion and a brilliantly executed Ukrainian defense, Russia remains the vastly dominant military power in this conflict, and it's one that can afford to lose squadrons of tanks on the roads on the way in and still bring to bear enormous power, artillery power in places like Mariupol to such brutal effect. Mr. Zelensky is clearly desperate to end the suffering of civilians. How does he do that when faced with those Russian tactics? He's got to try to make a deal.